Okay, how's everybody doing? All right, great. It's good to be back. I want to start off by congratulating our director of football equipment, Larry Waters, and his wife, Sarah. They had a baby daughter earlier this week, and it's very exciting for them. Larry's a great guy. He does a lot behind the scenes here for us. And Mary Collins is her name, and everything went smoothly, so that's great news. You know, one thing I learned when I moved to the South back in 2006 was about using the family names for your kids. You know, that was something you didn't see much up north, probably because of all the vowels in our names up north, you know. I don't know that you could name your daughter Mary Ruggiero Waters and it go over too well at school, or have the kindergarten teacher pronounce it correctly. So, but Mary Collins just has a very nice ring to it. And Larry does a lot for us behind the scenes. He's sort of one of the unsung heroes around here. And it's not an easy job, right? You're in customer service, but you're trying to uphold a high standard. You know, in this day and age of college football, you know, about a third of our roster is double numbers. So Larry and I are talking weekly about any potential issues there, and he's always ready with backup jerseys on the sidelines and things of that nature. So great guy, and appreciate him very much. Happy for them. You know, I've been doing this 31 years. It seems like every equipment manager I've ever been around, their political views are somewhere to the right of Attila the Hun. I don't know why that is, but that's been a constant in my 30-year coaching career. So Larry's been out this week, and Schuler Hayes, who's his assistant, has taken over pretty much like Alexander Haig did in the White House. He's in total control here. So doing a great job, and appreciate him as well, and looking forward to getting Larry back. I'm sure he'll be back for Saturday. So it was a disappointing loss down at Georgia, and I know you guys have talked to Coach Beamer enough about that at this point, but we certainly had our chances to do something special. We didn't do it, didn't finish it, and special teams certainly takes our part in that, and takes some ownership in that as well. The game ended up being about a wash for us, but we had some chances to make some things happen, and we didn't get that done. There were at least two shots where we really could have flipped the field position on a rainy day and punt and make them go a long field, and we didn't do that. We had a golden opportunity, a kickoff return, just a perfect kick. We had a field return called, and they kicked it down the middle of the field, and as soon as the ball came off the kicker's foot, I was just talking over the headsets, and I said, this is the one, but you still got to block them. And we missed a block at center. We missed a block at up back. We got a holding penalty by the up back as well, and that added to our issues in the third quarter, because that drive started off inside our 10-yard line, and it could have been, you know, a potential drive start out around midfield. Our kickoff team did well. We got one ball down inside the 15. Mitch kicked the ball well, so that was encouraging to see. But overall, you go into a game like that, it's got to be better than a wash, and you certainly can't have some of the self-inflicted wounds like we did on kickoff return if you want to do something special. So we got to keep working and learning, and as I've said many times since early to mid-August, this is very much a work in progress with this group right now. Every day I go into my meeting room and I look in the front of the room and I see some guys that I've worked hard to train for 2.5 years, and guys that really understand what we're doing, and many of them are not the ones playing on special teams for us right now. Almost every guy on every unit, with a few sprinkled in exceptions right now, are first and second year players in our program, and in some cases guys that have been walk-ons for us that are getting their first game action this season. So you know, that's a reminder to me that I've got to keep striving to keep things simple and not take anything for granted. And even though I'd like to be moving ahead on certain things, I feel myself going back and still teaching a lot of day one concepts in meetings, even this time of year when you're trying to get ready for specific game plans and attacking opponents and so forth. So we're still trying to find that sweet spot with personnel and trying out some different people in some different spots. The one constant has been our specialists, and those guys need to perform better. I can point to any one of our first 3 games and show you some excellent things that each of them has done, and I can also point to different plays in games where they have not executed at a level that we expect. So those guys really need to get themselves back to an elite level. And, nobody pushes themselves any harder than those guys. I'm confident that they'll do it, but we need them to do it, especially while so many other guys are coming along and coming along slowly. But this is the SEC, right? So nobody cares about your problems. There's no rest for the weary. You've got to keep forging ahead, and we've got a very experienced, talented, very physical opponent coming in here this week. You turn on their special teams and you see some really rugged guys blocking punts and covering kicks. And from a returner standpoint, and this is no disrespect to the team we just played, because they've got good returners, and we're going to see some other really good returners as the season goes on in conference and out of conference. But these guys at Mississippi State are really special. The Griffin kid, number 5, is a legitimate All-American candidate as a kick returner. He's got an incredible balance of elite speed, vision, pace, and pace is a word that I think is not appreciated enough in coaching. And to me, pace is the ability within a single play to know when to slow down and to know when to speed up. So a football play that's 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds long is not always played at the same speed. You might be a 4.5 40 guy, but you don't play that play at 4.5 the entire time. This guy's got an incredible ability to know when to hit the jets and when to just slow down just enough to let those creases happen on these kickoff returns. So he's going to be a tremendous challenge. He's had explosive returns against everybody he plays, and he's got a 33-plus yard career average. The punt returner is not far behind. Number 1, Thomas. He's a number change guy since last year, but he's averaging over 14 yards in his career per punt return. They do set up a lot of returns. They will selectively come after you as well, but he's another tremendous threat. So our protection needs to be sound. These guys have blocked a punt already this year, but we need to do a great job in coverage as well. They got a veteran long snapper. They've got some new kickers and punters that they're working through. Their punter is an Australian who's very adept at the rollout punts. They've got another punter they've used who's more of an angle punter. So we could see one of 2 different punters in this game. They've used a couple different kickers. So my gut is they're probably trying to find a little bit of their rhythm there and create some competition with those guys. So that just means we've got to be ready for some different people. So it's a challenging week. I mean, this is not a week where you're thinking about starting a new next Netflix series. I mean, this is a week that you'll stay up at night getting ready for these returners. So with that said, whatever questions you guys have.
Pete, you mentioned the Leggett kickoff return, but in a general sense, I mean, that play was obviously called. Do you give your returners free rein to decide if they're coming out of the end zone with a kick, or do you tell them this is what we want to do? What is the decision-making like when it looks like it could be a touchback?
Yeah, it's week to week. It's game to game. And certainly Xavier has earned a certain degree of trust. He's an experienced guy. He is one of those guys that has been in that room since day one and has really made tremendous progress. He's very solid back there as a kick returner. He's playing absolutely at an elite level at gunner. And not to drift away from your question, but he has performed exceptionally well at gunner the last 3 games, including against some really good corners at Georgia last week. And I would say if he can continue that, his stock as an NFL prospect is going to rise tremendously. So when you look at him, You see the combination of size and speed. You see that he could help on multiple units. He was one of our best kickoff cover guys last year. We're trying very hard not to use him there because he's rarely coming off the field at receiver. But the kickoff return and the gunner on punt are the non-negotiables for him. But if I was evaluating him as a pro scout general manager, I would say this is a guy that could play 4 units of special teams for me right now, and is doing a better and better job of catching competitive balls at receiver. His durability has been just phenomenal. So very, very proud of him. And we have a very dear relationship, that's been forged through a lot. When we first got here, he was a guy that was getting used to us and the way we expect to practice and the demands of the culture here. And, there was a little bit of wavering early on by him. He had some injuries early in his career. And, man, he's just come out of it with flying colors and gotten better and better every year. So I'm extremely proud of Xavier. Easy rider, as I like to call him.
Pete, with so many younger players out there and obviously maybe some veterans too that may not have played special teams over the last couple of years, when you evaluate just where things are at heading into week 3, is it more you want to see more technique improve, or is it more just the want from some of these guys?
Yeah, it's everything. It's everything. Even some of our transfers who are older guys did not play special teams at their previous stop because they were a guy that was playing so much on offense or defense that, the priorities were such that, hey, we're not going to use him to do A, B, and C on special teams. So I will say there's a willingness, especially by a lot of our older transfers. Like, they knew coming here that this was going to be important, and this was a chance for them to sort of expand their horizons and gain valuable experience and contribute to the team. So I think the attitudes of our older guys have been really good in terms of that aspect. But they do need more work, more time, more reps, more understanding of what we're doing. For a lot of the younger guys, this is still very eye-opening to them. And you could see it in the meetings. You can just see, well, wow, I didn't know there was this level of expectation and attention to detail that was necessary to be successful. And then you try to show them, post-game, look, here's why you're not winning your one-on-one, because, we showed you all the things, all the ingredients that go into being successful. If you just go out there and try hard, that's not going to be enough. I think a lot of those young guys, some of which were very highly recruited, that's still a very much of a learning process that they're going through at this point to appreciate everything that needs to go into it. Film study, paying attention in meetings, taking the meeting to the field, learning the concepts, not just memorizing, I've got this guy. There's a whole lot more to it than that. And just your athletic ability is not going to be enough to be successful. There's got to be an understanding of the concept, an attention to detail with the technique. How do I fit in to the rest of the scheme with those 10 other guys on the field? So that's definitely a work in progress.
You talk about how explosive Mississippi State is. When you're a special teams coordinator and you're kind of getting guys in and out, how do you balance maybe aggression versus trying to make a play to flip a game versus maybe just trying to keep things safe when you know the same thing can happen on the other end?
Yeah, we are always going to stay aggressive here. That is our mindset. That's our culture. We don't want to ever take our foot off the gas. So I think whether you're being really aggressive or being somewhat more conservative in your approach, it requires the same level of attention to detail. So, we are going to continue to push, and, there's not going to be any acceptance of, well, this is, this guy's 18 years old and he's covering a kickoff, so we've got to back off what we're doing. No, they've got to catch up to what we expect. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, like, maybe I would like to be moving further along and getting a little bit more sophisticated. I like to talk about ABCs and DEFs. Maybe I'd like to be on more DEFs at this point, but we're going back and rewinding and hitting the ABCs again. I can live with that. I need to accept that's where we're at. But that doesn't mean that you change your expectations. It just means you have to be a little bit more thorough and assume nothing. But we're still going to take the mindset that we've got to go out and attack people and make a difference. And I'm confident that we will.
Pete, you mentioned the specialists, but for Kai in particular, just how would you evaluate Kai's first 3 games, what he's done well and what needs to improve for him moving forward?
Yeah, so he's been a little bit up and down, I would say. I thought he hit the ball well against North Carolina. We had 2 punts in that game, and actually the Furman game played out similarly, where we were about on our own 40-yard line, so you're not really close enough to start talking about trying to pin them down. You need to hit a full punt. And he had a couple up in Charlotte that hit the turf and rolled into the end zone. Last year at Clemson, a couple of those just stuck in the ground like a pitching wedge, and we downed them inside the 5-yard line. So that's football. The ball takes different bounces. It's not round. But I thought he hit the ball really well up in Charlotte and hit it pretty well against Furman. This past week was not quite up to his expectations or ours. Obviously the weather wasn't great, which never helps, but I did think our operation was very good at Georgia under those conditions. We didn't have any issues with snaps and holds and kicks and punts. So that's always where it starts when you're in rainy conditions. But again, we've got experienced guys and we need those guys to perform at a high level every week.
When going against a guy like Griffin and kickoff return, with the understanding that not every ball you try to kick out of the end zone is going to go out of the end zone, is that kind of the chief goal in going against him, or do you try to manipulate some things where where you play coverage or something like that?
Yeah, we're always going to be multiple in our kickoff coverage, and that's no secret. I mean, you just turn on the film and you watch us, and we're doing a fair amount of different things in our coverages, and Mitch is hitting the ball well, but you have to assume that every time you kick it off that it's going to be returned, right? Because no kicker is perfect, and weather conditions, wind conditions, all of those things are factors in the game. So, without showing our hand, I think, people have studied us and sort of know what we do, and we're multiple, and we line up a lot of different ways, and we kick the ball a lot of different ways, and we have, different kickoff coverages that we can employ at different times. So that's, sort of the, I guess, the cliff notes on us from that standpoint.
Your thoughts on the New England Patriots field goal block the other day?
Yeah, I had a few people send that to me. I thought it was really cool. And certainly they had, studied that well and had some kind of indicator. And, the truth is in field goal protection, and not everybody's identical, but most of us approach that like you protect the same way no matter what the look is. So theoretically, if that wing is supposed to be double punching or whatever they're teaching, he should do that no matter what, whether there's a guy there or not. And I don't know if they saw something on film that, he was going to put his eyes inside or rotate, or if they had an indicator on the snap. But I thought it was really cool that they pulled it off. And, that's the beauty of football, right? When you think you've seen it all, you see something new and somebody pushing the envelope. So I thought that was really cool.
Pete, I know you didn't cross paths with him when you were at Dartmouth, but just didn't know if you have any thoughts on the passing of Dartmouth coach Buddy Tevens.
Yeah, I do. It's very sad, very sad. Dartmouth is a really special place to me. We spent 3 years up there, and 3 of the best years in coaching for me, just being around some really, really special people. We were a very close-knit staff and athletic department. So I worked for a guy named John Lyons, who was Buddy Tevens as defensive coordinator. And when Buddy got the Tulane job, John took over, and then I came in John's second year after his rookie season. So it was a closely connected staff, and a lot of great stories about their experiences. And then later on, when I was the head coach at Lehigh at a young age, Buddy ended up back at Dartmouth, and we talked a few times. And he was a guy that really tried to contribute a lot to the game in his own way. Some of his views were a little bit different. With tackling in practice, and he's famous for creating this robotic tackling dummy that people have used, and some different rules in the Ivy League and so forth. So, you always respect people that take so much pride in what they do and want to give back to the game, and he gave a lot back to Dartmouth. It's rare that you see somebody ended up being the head coach at a place twice in their career. He was a great player there as well, and I know his heart was very much at Dartmouth, and he spent, I believe, upwards of 20 years of his career there. So very grateful for that as somebody who cares a lot about that program and still has a lot of really dear relationships with people up in Hanover.
Two quick follow-ups on two different things, but with Kai, are his hang time numbers similar to that of last year? And also with the Patriot block field goal, do you envision other players trying to do that?
Well, I'll start with your second question and get back to the first. So there is, and no coach would probably want to admit this, but there is definitely some copycatting, as we call it, that goes on in coaching, right? And that's not always a bad thing. It's you study other people and you look for things that work, and you look for the right times to use those, and that's what we do as coaches. We talked in here a few weeks ago about talking to Jeff Munkin at Army about special teams and muddle huddle and things of that nature, and I was talking to Jeff Munkin on a Friday night before a game about muddle huddle not that long ago. And so that's what we do as coaches. We watch other stuff. We talk to people in the profession about what they do and how they do it. So I wouldn't be shocked to see it at some point by somebody else. Anything on offense, defense, special teams, right, is up for grabs if it's out there. It's none of it's trademarked or copyrighted, and only able to be used by one person. I would say relative to Kai, probably after this Georgia game, he's probably a little bit below where he needs to be, where we want him to be in terms of hang times, just because he had some that were, in the 3-point whatevers in this Georgia game. He did hit a couple good punts. The best one was coming out. We were backed up on our own 4-yard line, and that's a really scary situation. We had a great operation, and I believe he hit a 46-yard punt there that we were able to force a fair catch. So that was a breather because Georgia came after us in that situation, so we had to rush the operation. But he hit a good ball, and our gunners did a nice job covering downfield. Okay, guys, thanks so much. We'll see you soon. All right.